Well, if you're interested in traveling lifestyle at all, the nomadic lifestyle, you've probably heard plenty about meetups and gatherings. Um, and it's starting to ramp up again at that time of year. You'll find some in the summer, but winter, especially in the desert regions, but warmer regions in general, desert in particular, you find a ton of them. So I wanted to talk a little bit today about meetups and gatherings. Welcome back to another travel news episode. I'm your host, Robert Witham. I scour the news for stories of interest to travelers and those who love the great outdoors, so you don't have to. Did you know I'm on Patreon? You can join me there for as little as $1 a month, which probably is less than a cup of coffee most places anymore. And that gets you access to behind the scenes stories and photos, as well as early access to videos, news, and more. Visit patreon.com/Robert Witham if you want to check that out. Well, like I said, we're going to talk about meetups today, and I invited my good friend Debra Dickinson to join me for this video and provide some additional perspective on meetups and gatherings for nomads and other travelers if you don't put yourself into that nomad category. Well, thanks for joining me for this video, Deborah.
You bet.
You've been on the road a long time now, and so you got some perspective with meetings. I thought it'd be fun to have you join for this instead of just me sitting here talking.
Okay. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for the invite, Robert.
All right, I want to ask you to talk with you about meetups and gatherings and that sort of thing. But before we dive into that, you do have your own meetup. You host your own. Been doing it for a while now. KOKO
Yeah.
Fest 2021 will be this year.
Oh,
Um,
cool tagline. Thank you.
yeah, and I know you're not releasing all the details yet publicly. You've shared them with your patrons, but you
Yeah.
will be releasing all that soon, Friday evening this week as we're recording it on your Friday Night Live. And
Yes.
so people can go check that video out or watch for your Monday announcement. Your Monday next week, you'll have a video about it if they want to learn more. But
Yes. This Friday night on my FNL, I will just be telling people about it, and anybody that is on there can then go make their reservations ahead of time before the public video is released on Monday, the 13th.
all right. So without going into the details, because that's all going to be released in on FNL and on the video. What generally what can you tell people about this if they're not familiar with it?
Okay, well, this is my 5th annual meetup. I hear those words coming out of my mouth, and I'm just like, what? When did that happen? But yeah, so I've been holding meetups out here. I think the only person longer than me is Bob and Jamie, and so I started mine because Bob's got so big, and I wanted to keep the small venue, especially for newbies and people that are on the road hoping to meet other people. Because in a large venue, you can still do that, but it's much easier in a smaller one. So this is my 5th annual KOKO Fest. It is the first one that I've held outside of Quartzsite, and it's going to be in New Mexico.
You want all the rest of the details, folks? Watch for that Friday Night Live or the video on Monday.
And I'll tell you, Robert, it cracks me up now because there are so many events to go to during the winter season in the Quartzsite area now, and there didn't used to be, and it's kind of like I don't know. It's like everybody knows about all the others, but I've been doing this now for 5 years, so it's interesting how times change, and I love that people come and go, and that people start up new things. I'd wanted to do the Ehrenberg cleanup, and Bob told me not to do that. Do you remember?
I remember that. You were talking about that before anybody did it.
I know. And he said, don't do that. You don't want to draw attention and get the Rangers out here and da 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 da. And I could shoot myself for not doing that. But the point I'm trying to make is that someone else did. And so I think it's good that we have so much variety now. And I just hope that everybody is working with the Leos and the authorities and everything that they need to. But there's a lot of events to choose from anymore.
There are, and I wanted to mention too, or to reiterate, as you said, one of the great things about some of these smaller meetups like yours is that
Yeah.
it's easier to meet people. you think if you go, I mean, you go to an event with 5,000, 10,000 people, it's actually surprisingly hard to meet people because it's
Yeah.
just so chaotic, and or at least to really develop more intimate relationships. And so with a smaller event, it's really easy to get to know a group of people, and some of them you're really going to connect with, and maybe develop long term friendships from that. End up traveling together maybe, or camping together in the future or whatever. So that I
Yeah.
think that's the real value there. And I've heard a lot of people who've come to your meetup said that they might go to the RTR too. But one of the things they valued about yours was it was more intimate.
Yes. And especially if you're wanting to learn things, and I try to put on not necessarily classes, but show and tells, I guess, for lack of a better word, that does help people that are new. And even you and I have made lifelong friends, and from small meetups like this, and the pre RTR that doesn't exist anymore,
Right, right.
some of the smaller venues, you and I both have lifelong friends from those.
Absolutely. I mean, when you're talking about seminars or presentations or show and tells or whatever, yeah, if you're in a group with 30 people, you can actually interact a bit with a presenter. When you have
Yeah,
two or 300 or 500, you can't do that. So,
right.
but yeah, I've made some great friends, people I'm still in regular contact with that I met at one of your meetups. Um,
Yes.
our late friend Doug was a good example of that.
Yes.
Sadly, he passed away this year, but he was a great guy, and I met him at your meetup. And Sean, our friend Sean from the Yukon, that,
Yeah.
is
That hopefully we get to see this winter.
yeah,
That was
yeah, he couldn't be down
last
last
winter.
year. But yeah, I met him at your meetup, so and that was yeah. So there's been some great people, but that's just only two examples out of many
Yeah.
more I could come up with.
Exactly. And I just want to say, Robert, that I think both venues are valuable. I don't do large crowds well. So I quit going to Bob's RTR, I believe, probably 4 or 5 years ago, because it got bigger than I could handle, for my traumatic brain injury and social anxieties and everything. And but there is great. I want to just stress that there's great benefit and value in both the large venues, if that's your cup of tea and you can go, and the small venues. I'm not trying to take away anything from the larger ones.
Right, right. And I remember the first one I went to was with you, and I think there were was that the year there were 600 or something, and the next
Yeah,
year went to thousands, and that was busy that year.
yeah.
And
I think,
it's only
oh, it was 6 years
but
ago.
yeah, a lot of people love that, and there are things you can do with a major event like that that you can't do with a small one, and vice versa. So they're
Yes,
just different experiences. Not that one is good or bad or better
thank
or
you.
worse. They're just different. But I will say I'm an introvert. I like small, alone or small groups. And you mentioned the pre-RTR that used to exist back in the day. That was my favorite part. I love
Yeah.
that more than the RTR itself personally because you had still had people coming together, but it was smaller and more intimate and more manageable. And from that, I developed again friendships with people I'm still in contact, still in touch with, still camp with and stuff.
Yes.
So that was a bit of history for those of you that are newer to all this. That it ain't no more, but it was a good back in the good old days.
I know, I feel like a dinosaur, but it's true. It's true. Things have changed so much.
and fast.
Yes.
All right, so that's anyway. That's KOKO Fest 21. Watch for that coming up. Information coming up. You can go to
Yes, please.
debradickinson.com too if you want to, if you don't want to do the video thing. But there are a few other kind of topics I wanted to talk about around this for this
Okay.
video. And one question is why attend meetups or gatherings? If somebody is thinking about getting on the road, they're not traveling yet, or they're just getting on the road. This is going to be their first winter season, and you can find some in the summer, but a lot, especially since the pandemic, a lot of those were canceled. So winter is really the big time in the Southwest desert. That's kind of especially that's the big time for meetups and gatherings. So what's the deal? Why do that if you don't know?
Well,
I mean,
I
you
I'm
know. if the person watching doesn't know.
Right, right. And I think that's a good question, Robert. And I think I'm going to throw something out there that most people, well, at least I didn't think of. And that is one of the big things it does is get you out of your comfort zone. Because I believe that, there's that saying, introverts unite. I don't think people can see that, but there's introverts unite. And each in your own rig. Because there are a lot of us that are out here. We are introverts, and we do enjoy remote solitude camping. There's a lot of people that want to travel with other people, but there's also a lot that prefer their alone time. And I think meetups, if you can find one that you're comfortable with, gets you out of that comfort zone and into meeting like-minded people, which we all tout as far as nomadic meetups and travelers meeting up, that it helps you meet other people. You and I just talked about our lifelong friends we've made, but it also pulls you into and out of yourself, and you become a part of the bigger whole. And I don't think you get to do that if you don't go to at least a few meetups and try.
That is a really good point, and I'm not sure it's one I would have thought to mention myself if I was
Yeah.
just coming up with my list. But that is a good point, and I think, especially for people like me, I'm an introvert. I sometimes need a little kick in the pants to get out there and talk to people.
Yeah. Us do all.
Some of the, I don't know, some other ideas that kind of come up for me. See what you think. It gives you a chance to realize you're not that weird.
I don't know if I say that for myself, but I know where you're going.
For a lot of people, I hear, and I'm sure I know you do too. For a lot of people they want to do this, they're thinking they're getting ready to do this, and they don't know anybody else in the world that actually does this. And so it's you can feel kind of like I'm the only one doing this. I'm really weird, and so it can be helpful to meet a bunch of other people who have a similar lifestyle and some similar values around that lifestyle.
Yes, and the same feelings and needs and fears and hopes and things that you're leaving behind and things that you're going to. You get to share that with people that are in that same boat, so to speak.
And you mentioned things like seminars or show and tells or whatever, but even informally, I find just going to a meetup, you meet a bunch of people, you get talking, and sometimes you come across a solution to a problem you've had that you haven't known how to fix, how to solve.
Right.
And so you mentioned someone who's like, oh, well, you know what I did, or my friend did this. You might try that, and she can come up with some great ideas, whether it's gear or arrangement or travel or whatever. But
oh, I can give you an example. I don't remember who came to my meetup a few years ago, and they had the best chair cover for our outdoor chairs that are portable chairs. They had the best chair cover, and I didn't get to spend time with them to figure out how they did it. And I keep looking for them at meetups, and I don't remember who it was, but I know I'll recognize her chair cover. And I keep looking. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say that I keep looking for her because I want to learn how to do that. And it was just very unique. And then, like you said, from all the way into real techno geek stuff, maybe if you're having an electrical issue or something. And that's why one of the reasons in my morning, each morning before we get started for the day at my meetups, I ask people, do you have something you need, or do you have something you're giving away? Because that's where connections can really come together around a lot of that stuff.
Right. So and if you're watching this and you were at Debra's meetup, one of Debra's meetups, and you had the chair cover, shoot Debra an email. Debra does rvlife@gmail.com, because she really needs to know how you did that.
Yeah, I've been looking for years.
I'm trying to think off the top of my head here. I don't have a long list of notes for why meetups, but that hit some of the highlights anyways. it's a good experience. Provides a lot of opportunities. So they're they're worth checking out. If you're intimidated by the big groups, check out a little one. Um, even if you try a big one, if something like the RTR, if they are able to host it again in January, they're hoping to. It's all dependent on how things go, but you can always leave. I mean, if it's too much,
Turn the key.
yeah, you're not committed for however long just because. I'm getting a phone call from one of my granddaughters. I'll have to call her back when I get. Two of them now have watch phones. So Pops is no longer safe.
School.
Yeah, they just get out of school, they get home from school, so phone starts ringing. Another question to kind of topic though, I was maybe, and you can kind of touch on this anyways, but anything specific you can share about your experiences with meetups? A few highlights that stand out? Best experiences. I don't know if we want to go with the worst experience, but best experience.
Well,
Memories.
Yeah, I think I will cover something about the worst. I don't know that it's actually the worst, but short of turning that key and leaving, meetups are usually come and go. You can get there late, you can leave early, you can do even throughout the day, not just the event from the start date to the end date, but it throughout the day. And I think what I want people to know, if you haven't been to a meetup, is be prepared. It's just like any other, I guess, place that you might go, and you're put into a small area with a lot of people, and the size of the crowd can vary, like we just talked about. But be prepared to go, yeah, this person's really bothering me. I'm going to go back to my rig for a while. Or the noise is really getting to me. I'm going to go back to my rig for a while. Or this topic just doesn't interest me. I'm not feeling it right now. I'm going to go back to my rig for a while. That doesn't necessarily mean you need to turn the key and leave. And you can stay in your rig or go somewhere else or come back around people when you feel like it. I think anything that you can get your toes a little wet in the water, and you don't have to just dive in completely. You can just test the waters for whatever feels comfortable. And I didn't know that.
I think that's a good point. And kind of a voluntary timeout, as some of my granddaughters do on occasion when they're stressing.
Yeah, and I think also that if I had known that up front, I think I would have gone to more meetups sooner, because I felt like it was an all or nothing, and I don't do crowds, and so I would let my anxieties ramp up before it even started, and sometimes I would register for one and not even go. But if you know that you can just go here and there, even during the event, to whatever you want to, and hibernate when you don't, I think that takes some of the stress off.
And ironically, amusingly, Deborah and I ended up at a get-together, a pre-RTR get-together,
Yes.
with chips and dip and stuff. She came in with some other friends. I was there. We didn't actually meet formally in person then, and then I missed the RTR. And it wasn't until 6 months later we met in Williams, Arizona, at another get-together, thanks to Bob Wells again. But we were at the same little pre-RTR get-together, and we somehow didn't connect. So
yeah,
that's the other end of the line.
And I don't know why this is coming up for me to share this right now, but you're talking about that, and three of our friends that were at those events, you mentioned Doug, and there was Steve and Fred, all three are no longer with us. And it's just, time is so short. If you can go to these things at a comfort level that you can enjoy and meet people. I mean, I wouldn't trade anything for, I didn't know Steve that well, but I wouldn't trade anything for the time that I had with Doug and Fred. And And I met them at meetups that, they're who I came, you were talking about what, I came in with some friends with chips and dips, and Fred was part of that group. And then later Doug came to my meetup and we both met him. And so you just never know who you're going to meet at these things. And it just draws you out of your comfort zone. And I just encourage people to allow that and know that you're going to be okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And people ask me all the time, I'm getting on the road. I just got on the road. How the heck do I meet people? I always say, summertime, I mean, you're going to meet people a little bit, but really the big thing, if you come down to the desert in the winter, you're going to meet more people than you can possibly get to know. I mean, even if you don't try, and if you're intentional and go to a few meetups, I mean, you can't help but meet people. And some of those, are going to turn into great long-term friendships, and maybe traveling companions, who knows what. So, but yeah, definitely a great way to meet people.
Not to mention the education factor that you talked about earlier, the exchange of ideas, the exchange of tangible goods, all of that occurs.
Absolutely, yeah. All right, so we're talking a lot about meetups. I have a couple I know I'm going to be at this year. Do you have anything? What are your plans? You got any for definite plans, or I won't ask you which ones you're avoiding.
There actually aren't any that I avoid. There are some that I can't get into because the crowds are so big, it feels like a wall. And so if I could find a way, like I was talking about, if you can find a way that works with your comfort level to get it to where I can go, I might even go to those. But it's like I have friends that just left Descend on Bend that just finished over Labor Day weekend, and it's like, oh my God, just shoot me. I could not have done that. And but I am going to Lollapalooza in Texas. I can't remember the exact dates right now. And then right after that one is mine. And then there is I'm not going to make it in time for the cleanup in Ehrenberg, unfortunately. But then there is the Thanksgiving bash that I might do, and I haven't really thought about it from there. But my friends and I kind of do our own informal little meetups, it seems like. If that makes any sense.
Oh yeah. Well, you mentioned Descend on Bend. I for a few years thought I might go to that, and it just was never the right place at the right time. I was in Wyoming, or I was traveling the other direction. Like last year, I could have worked it out timing wise, but it was September. I was leaving Wyoming, going to New York, upstate New York. So there was no way I was going to Oregon first and then back across. So now it's gotten big enough. Now I'm not sure that it's really on my radar, but
geography matters.
Yeah, it does, because that's like 1,200 miles west of here, and then I'd have to come back here, and then 2,000 miles the other way, and then another couple thousand miles back to the desert. So that just all wasn't happening. Oh, you mentioned informal meetups, though. That actually was the final thing I had on my note list. That not all we are talking about meetups. These are when we've mostly been mentioning some formal meetups. Sometimes they're not always formal, organized, and promoted. I guess there's a lot of little informal meetups that happen every year. And like you say, you've done it with your friends. You have little meetups. You might be 2 or 3 people. It might be 10 or 20 people, but it's kind of a informal thing. You just contact some friends, or you bump into somebody at Silly L's and go, "Oh, you're down here too. What do you let's get together."
Right. And it's like last year, after Phoenix rose from the ashes, when I thought she had died and I was getting ready to get rid of her. And then my friends Curtis and Randy came and helped me get her going again. I went and I hung out with friends in the desert, and I think I celebrated all winter. And we always had at least probably 10 in our camp. And then there were other camps, even in LTVA, where people, had a dozen or so people come and go. But yeah, that happens after you start meeting enough people out here. And the way you do that is go to the formal meetups.
Anything else you can think of we should talk about meetups?
Well, I think the only other thing that I would say is kind of cautionary. It's not it's just something that I do. I always want to know who's responsible. If it's a formal event, I always want to know who's responsible for organizing it. And if it is going to be on public lands or somewhere, I kind of want to know whether or not that they have approval for that, and kind of what the venue is going to be. So while I am saying make yourself get out there and go to these meetups and get outside your comfort zone, it's also okay to do a little vetting and make sure you know what you're walking into. I guess there are some that I wouldn't go to, but only because I don't know the answer to those questions, and those are things that are important to me.
Yeah, that is a very good point, and I'm glad you thought to mention that. Um, yeah, I do not also, I also do not go to events or meetups that I think are breaking the rules, and they're not, they're organized, but they don't have proper permits, or they're not, they're just things are kind of hinky. I'm going to steer clear of that because I don't want to be associated with that. So, yeah, very, very good point. So, viewers, any of these things you hear mentioned online, it's always your responsibility, my responsibility individually to do your homework, your due diligence, and vet it, and make sure it's legit, or it's going to be okay.
Yeah, know what you're walking into and what you're taking your home to, because we're all in our own homes.
Right, right, yeah. So, and I have heard of situations where people were doing an event without a permit, and the rangers show up, and things get pretty tense. So,
Yeah.
I'm going into more details than that, but it is a thing. So, you don't want to be in the middle of that.
Yeah, or at least know what you're getting into. Someone might choose to attend that regardless, but at least know. It's okay to ask the questions and know up front, and then make up your mind.
All right. Well, thanks for joining me, Deborah, for this video. I think it's added a lot of value to the conversation.
Good. Thank you for the invite, Robert. And I love your travel news channel. It is just I look forward to every one of your episodes, and I mean that sincerely. It's a much needed resource out here, and every time you put up a video, I'm hopping over right away to see what's going on.
Oh, thank you. And as you know, I try and focus on news that's I think is going to be of interest to travelers and those of us who love the great outdoors. And sometimes it's very specifically about that. Sometimes it's a little more tangential, but it's I have fun with it, and I think it provides a valuable service by getting all that in one place. So otherwise, it's with aggregators these days, it's so hit and miss what you may or may not see
Yeah.
in the news feed.
And your personal stories in it make it so interesting and applicable. So keep going. I love it.
I think she just said I'm a real character, but I'm not sure.
Well, probably.
I come from a long line of entertainers, so.
Yes. And it's all good.
All right. Well, thanks for joining me, Deborah.
You bet. See you down the road, everybody. Keep on keeping on.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this presentation. We gave you some useful information. I was going to originally mention some of the meetups, but you know what? My list on my website has gotten so long, I didn't want to take the time to go through it. So, links in the description if you want to go check that out. I got a ton of resources on there, including a list of events and gatherings that is updated routinely throughout the year. So, as I become aware of new events that might be of interest to my readers and viewers, so check that out if you want to see what's happening. Meanwhile, don't forget, travelers, to send me links or details or stories you think might be of interest to robert.witham@gmail.com. Thank you to those who have already shared news and links. And now you know what's going on out there. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, and consider subscribing if you're not already. And I will catch you in the next video.